Hi there, this is the Sports Show. Big day in Denver. We're back on the air after a hiatus for a few days. And Mark Kiszla, Woody Paige, we'll spend the next hour with you, and no time for your happy talk or small talk or what you did over the holidays and what kind of pie you ate and whether you liked candy canes or any of that. Let's get right into it. Are the Broncos with the number one seed the Super Bowl favorite now? They're not in the line because the New England Patriots and the Carolina Panthers are at 9-2. Who's your favorite, if not the Broncos, to win the Super Bowl right now?
The Seattle Seahawks are my favorite because I think they're the best team in football right now. They have a tough road to get to the Super Bowl, but as John Elway tells us all the time, as the Broncos tell us all the time, it's not who you play, where you play, it's how you're playing in the tournament. And I think the Seahawks are playing the best football.
Yeah, well, I would agree with you, and I have ranked them number 2 somewhere in some program that I'm doing. But I must tell you, I don't think Seattle can go to Carolina and beat Carolina. I know Carolina had a burp in the next to last game. The Panthers did, but I don't see Seattle. Seattle can go to Arizona and win. They can go to Green Bay and win. But I don't see them being able to go to Carolina. I mean, Carolina is the team of destiny, if you will, in the NFC. Let's forget about the NFC for a second. John Clayton, our good friend, ESPN, we spent some time in San Diego in the hallway talking to him, says the New England Patriots have the easiest road in the AFC. Do you agree with that? And do you think the Patriots should still, based on what they've done, losing, 3 out of the last 4 or 3 out of the last 5, that the Patriots should be installed as a favorite in the AFC?
The Patriots came to Denver 10-0. The Patriots left Denver with a loss. I said the Patriots, as a defending champ, looked soft, looked vulnerable, and I didn't think the Patriots could defend their title. Well, since that time, they've gone 2-4. I'm sorry, John Clayton. Whoever... the Broncos or the Patriots. The first round game is likely to be very difficult for both of those teams because I think the Chiefs and the Steelers will win this wild card round, and they'll both be formidable foes for Denver and New England.
I chuckled a bit there because this may be the year of the wild card.
Right.
You just brought up the Seattle Seahawks. Green Bay Packers are a wild card team. And
right.
we've kind of, the Packers have been found out since they played in Denver, both New England and Green Bay. Cincinnati, maybe this is not the place to come and play if you were a favorite. I think that you're right to an extent. Kansas City and the Steelers, in my mind, are going to win the first 2 games. You have Cincinnati playing against Pittsburgh. As everyone knows, this is one of those triple season games where you're playing the team that you played twice already in the regular season. Pittsburgh's better than Cincinnati without Andy Dalton. With Andy Dalton, they're better. Pittsburgh now has a running back problem in regard to another running back that's hurt. But I think Pittsburgh can beat anybody now, including the Denver Broncos. I think Kansas City, winning 10 straight games, going to go to Houston and just whack up on Houston because Houston still doesn't have a quarterback. They've started like 7 this year. I think both those wild cards win. That would mean that then the Chiefs would come here and the Steelers would go to New England, wouldn't it?
I mean, the Steelers would come here and the Chiefs would go to New England. But
yeah.
Either way, it's not a guaranteed win for either of the top 2 seeds in the AFC. Okay, let me ask you this. The game yesterday, the victory that gave the Broncos the number 1 seed, the comeback victory against San Diego, the reemergence of Peyton Manning, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate that win for the Broncos?
9.
9?
I would say 10, but I'm kind of like Roger Ebert. I never give 10s to anybody. We've seen that in the Olympics as much as you have to really work hard for it. Meaningful, they could have let it all slip away yesterday. They could have been the wild card team. They could have lost the division. They could have lost whatever mojo they might have based on winning at Cincinnati. And what happened is, I think, a few things. And I'll give you room here, space, to respond to this. I think they felt like this was a bye week. They were coming off a Sunday night game that was very emotional. They admitted that and players I talked to, they had a bad week of practice, that they had injury issues. They were more concerned about their own health. I thought they felt that San Diego would come in here and give up. And San Diego didn't come in here and really fight that hard. I kept writing down players that they were without and players that they lost during the course of the game. The Broncos beat a scout team yesterday. That's why I don't give it a 10. They beat a team that had no offensive lineman left by the end of the game. I thought they were going to have to put tight ends at tackle. They were down to playing J.D. Walton, who couldn't play worth a damn when he was here or anywhere else in the league. He's just a guy. He's a jack. So they weren't playing against much of a team offensively and defensively when you're talking about a guy who's potentially a Hall of Fame safety, Eric Waddle. They had kicked off the team. I don't think they beat much, but they were looking for some sort of spark. Guess where they found it? They found it in Peyton Manning. So I think Peyton Manning I saw a calmer Peyton Manning. I saw a panicking kind of Peyton Manning when he was playing before. A guy who was really concerned about his injury, concerned about interceptions he was throwing. He wasn't trying to force anything. You saw that yesterday. He didn't force a pass. He didn't put passes into traffic. He handed off the ball. He played under center. I thought he came back as a guy that was the Peyton Manning, even more so than I've seen him in his career. He was more composed yesterday. He was looking at the defense. And we'll get into who should be the quarterback, but what I thought he gave them was an element of the leadership they didn't have before, that they haven't had for weeks. Brock Osweiler's not a leader yet. They don't have leaders on defense. He gave them a composed quarterback, and he gave them a settled situation. I heard from the San Diego Chargers, they were going, oh no, here comes Peyton. It's like the Lone Ranger had just ridden over the peak.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give the Broncos a 5. They, on the big screen of the scoreboard, the Bronco players and everybody in the stands saw before the game that New England had lost, and all the Broncos had to do was win, and they'd be the number 1 seed. And I believe that Gary Kubiak, John Elway, strongly feel that this team needed that number 1 seed, needed that home field advantage to have any real shot of making the Super Bowl. And then the Broncos came out and they played terrible. I mean, they had 5 turnovers.
What, 5 in a row or something? 4 out of 5?
By early in the third quarter. Then your man Peyton did come to the rescue, and I give him full credit. He played very well. But to say that they're a more impressive team because they beat the scout team from the Chargers? No, that was. But
would you agree?
They did what they had to do, so I'll give them credit for that.
Would you agree to this extent that you saw a different Peyton Manning than you had?
Yes, I will give you that. Is that I think Peyton Manning tried to be the Peyton Manning of 2012, 2013 for most of this season, and then in this game, his comeback game, he decided, you know what? I'm a 39-year-old quarterback. I'm limited. I'm not going to try to do too much.
I thought he let the game come to him. Correct. Rather than trying to take it and say, I'm going to put it all on my shoulders. This segment brought to you by John Elway Chevrolet on South Broadway, Colorado's #1 Chevrolet dealership.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
Mark Kiszla, this is the Sports Show. I'm Woody Paige. Was Peyton Manning's presence, to follow up on that last question, was Peyton Manning's presence the reason they won the game, or would they have won it with Brock anyway, or was there some Kubiak message at halftime? Was there something beyond the appearance of Peyton Manning?
Peyton Manning's entrance into the game created a buzz in the stadium, created a buzz on the sideline, created an energy surge for his team. That was real. That was undeniable. That's all due credit to Peyton Manning. But the Broncos won the game because they ran the dang ball. It wasn't because Peyton Manning was, 5 of 9 for about 70 yards. He wasn't all-world quarterback. Like you said, he was a game manager. It's because he got under center, and as C.J. Anderson told me, after his fumble early in the third quarter, C.J. was ticked off. And he ran ticked off, and the offensive line that we've been down on blocked well. It was the running game was the reason why the Broncos won that game.
But here, I sound like, we went to school, not together, but I sound like I am Peyton's agent. I'm going to tell you two other things. One, I could see that he was, as he's always told both me and you've spent enough time talking, he doesn't try to get into a better place. He tries to get out of a bad place. He was examining the defense. Brock tends to go with whatever the play is called. He does call him off every once in a while. He was looking over the defense as the old Peyton Manning would do. Not talking about the old Peyton Manning, but the former Peyton Manning. He was putting them into run situations that were great. And I saw some, last night I saw some tape of a couple of times when he changed the play because the blitz was coming over here, he ran that way. Rather than throwing to where the blitz came from, he decided to run away from the blitz with a stretch play. Now that's A. And two, which I didn't see much information about. Tyler Columbus came in the game at the same time. Now, are we sitting here talking about Joe Thomas? No, we're talking about Tyler Columbus, who's a backup lineman in the National Football League. But Michael Schofield was getting Brock and Peyton killed all year long, and rather than actually getting him some help, and as Troy Rink pointed out, and he'll join us later on the show, they could have lined up a brigade from England in the 1800s behind Schofield, and that would have been enough help for him. But when Tyler Columbus came in, I thought he played extremely well. I think it was a combination of Peyton examining what was going on in front of him and Tyler Columbus coming in and putting, instead of salt on that wound, that he actually put a Band-Aid on that wound that they had at right tackle.
The benching of Brock Osweiler, how does that affect his future with the Broncos? Was it significant in that regard?
I'm going to make this short. I think the Broncos are going to say to Brock Osweiler, go get your best deal, we'll match it. Go out there. John Elway's done this before. He's done this with other players. Go out there, find your best offer. I think that the agent's going to say to people, well, Brock will take it, so that it's a real life kind of situation of an offer. But I believe, let's say it's Houston or whoever it might be, that offers $40 million over 4 years. And then John Elway is then going to make a decision, is that too much for Brock Osweiler? Do we go in another direction? Do we draft a quarterback? Do we go with Trevor Siemian, who's been the left-out man here that Gary Kubiak is in love with and wanted them to draft? I think Brock's future here is uncertain, but I think they're going to say to him, go try, and we'll try.
If they say that, and I am Brock Osweiler's agent, this is what I tell my client, Brock Osweiler. I say, hey, they bench you in the playoffs. What makes you think the Denver Broncos have your best interests at heart going forward? Let's go find a team that really wants us and really believes in us. Now, how Brock responds to that, I don't know. But I'm telling Osweiler, if they don't play you in the playoffs, then you need to find a new team.
I would just add to that, would the loss of Brock Osweiler be the end of the Denver Broncos? I don't think so. I again think they have a guy in waiting who will be a further 6-8 months away from his knee surgery that he had at Northwestern. A guy that looked pretty impressive in terms of what I've seen him. I think they have a guy that's a quarterback in waiting in Trevor Siemian, and you go out and get a free agent veteran to actually help during this transition. This segment brought to you by John Elway Chevrolet on South Broadway, Colorado's #1 volume dealership in Chevrolets.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
Hello, my name is Greg Stone, President and General Manager, and I would like to personally thank you for making Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village the #1 Lexus dealer in Colorado.
Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village. For exceptional customer service and world-class amenities, take in the beauty of the Rocky Mountains from our rooftop patio. Relax while enjoying a movie in our premium theater. This is the ultimate luxury car buying experience. Visit Cooney Lexus of Greenwood Village or Cooney Lexus of Colorado Springs. Click CooneyLexus.com.
This is a sports show. It's presented by the Denver Post and John Elway Chevrolet today, and we're going to get with Troy Rink in just a moment. But let me ask you this: should Gary Kubiak, before we get to the Powerball $400 million question, should Kubiak even make a public announcement, as he's done early? Now they have that bye week, but should Kubiak hold off and make whoever they're playing think about it next week? Because San Diego said, Phillip Rivers last night said they prepared for both of them. He was surprised Manning didn't start.
Gary Kubiak met with the media at 9 a.m. Monday morning, and the first 5 questions were all about, have you decided on a starter? Would you tell us who the starter is? We want to know, we want to know, we want to know. And Kubiak said, I'm going to take my time. I don't have a timeline. And he said, beyond that, we don't even practice until Thursday, so I'm going to give my team this time off. And when we reassemble, then I'll start worrying about that.
Troy Rink, beat writer for the Denver Post and veteran now with the Denver Broncos, has joined us from Dove Valley. Troy, I hear the Powerball is $400 million. I'm going to ask you and Mark Kiszla, who should be the starter?
I think it'll be Peyton Manning. Woody, at this point, makes more sense. If he's healthy, not sure he can get through a full game. He looked every bit of 39 in that game in the win over the Chargers. But it just feels like it's Manning's team. If you go back and look at how Kubiak approached this, Woody, he talked all along if Manning were healthy, he would be the guy. And you'd say, well, why wasn't he against the Chargers? I just think there was enough uncertainty there. They weren't sure given how that Chiefs game played out in November. But he proved to them he was healthy, at least healthy enough. So my guess is on Thursday they will announce it'll be Manning. But that's just an educated guess right now.
Mark Kiszla, who should be this quarterback in the first playoff game?
There's no doubt in my mind. It's an easy answer. Brock Osweiler should be the starter. He's younger. He's played better this year, and as you saw Peyton Manning take a vicious hit in the fourth quarter, I'm not sure at 39 years old, behind this offensive line, that Peyton Manning can't survive an entire game.
Well, I disagree with you, and I tend to Troy's giving us more of a speculation rather than a hardcore opinion. No offense to you, Troy, but what you think's going to happen. I think you start Manning and you try to get as much out of him as you can for as long as you can. If Troy's right that he looks 39, if you're saying, he took a vicious hit, why don't you try and get as much out of him, his experience? And we know the one and done Manning. Would you rather have Brock Osweiler going up against the Kansas City Chiefs here at home or
Yes.
the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yes.
And it would be the Steelers. Then
Did Brock Osweiler play well against the Steelers? Yes. Did it get to a point against the Steelers earlier this year when he could have used some relief help? Yes. I think Peyton Manning is better suited to the relief role because if the team is down, say 13-7 to the Chargers or 13-7 to the Steelers, who would you rather have as your relief pitcher in that role, Brock Osweiler or Peyton Manning? I bring Peyton in as a change of pace and to give the other team a chance to go, whoa, now we weren't expecting that.
Troy, were you somewhat surprised? I was. The mood in the locker room, I thought it would be a lot more of a celebration and an exultation, if you will, than it was a very somber, I thought, locker room. Did you feel that at all?
A little bit. So much was overshadowed by the quarterback situation. When you watch the video, the raw video shot by the team of Kubiak talking to them, there was more jubilation there. But yeah, by the time we got in there, it was just the only story was the quarterback situation and Manning coming in. But I do think it speaks well to them, Woody, that the AFC West wasn't the goal. I mean, they certainly have bigger goals here, but it just speaks to how crazy this season is. That had Pittsburgh not lost to the Ravens 2 weeks ago, the Broncos would have been facing a playoff elimination with 4:46 remaining yesterday, and instead they're the number 1 seed. I mean, that is their season for me in a nutshell. That they can either be out or they're the 1 seed. They're clearly a 1 seed kind of in name only. There's no dominant team in the AFC right now, and now they have uncertainty at quarterback. But with their defense, you give them that chance because they can beat teams on that side of the ball. But it has just been as wild a season I can remember for a team that's been so successful. I mean, 12-4, but it just doesn't feel like 12-4. It feels much more like 5-4. The last 9 games, that every game there's been some kind of odd drama or change or something.
Well, I talked to Wade Phillips last night, and he said, "Doesn't that summarize the whole season, Woody?" I mean, it hasn't been the last 9 games. It's been all season long. Every game has been a struggle like that. And for him, as a defensive coordinator, he's faced this situation over and over and over again. Troy Rink from the Denver Post is with us. We'll continue with him and Mark Kiszla right after I tell you about the premier men's health clinic in Colorado. My friends over there at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic, they can, in one visit, change your sex life. I remember Charlene Smith did that for me when I was 16. Well, they can do that at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. Reclaim the fun, excitement, and intimacy of sex through a unique program that focuses on the individual patient. You'll find a comfortable, relaxing environment where you can sit back, watch ESPN or the Golf Channel, and get Colorado licensed experienced medical providers who are focused on men's sexual health and your overall health. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic, 720-440-7900. Go online, RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com.
Is a lack of intimacy at home starting to affect your performance on the course? There are many factors like high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol that may be contributing to your erectile dysfunction. Get back in the game with one visit to Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic, offering same-day solutions for all erectile dysfunction and premature issues. And you get to try the medications containing FDA ingredients right in their office. Let the providers at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic help you get your confidence back. And be sure to ask about the $99 limited time special. Call today.
This is a sports show, and we're talking right now with Troy Rink, the beat writer for the Denver Broncos with the Denver Post. We talked to Gary Kubiak at 9 a.m. Monday morning, and he played it close to the vest about what he's going to do at the quarterback position. Do you think he's made up his mind already? And is there a strategic advantage to keeping it a secret as long as possible?
Well, there certainly would be, Kiz, if he waited, but I can't see him waiting much longer than Monday. I do think that again, my gut tells me we'll know on Thursday that he will have met with the quarterbacks and then he'll tell the team. Do I think he's made up his mind? I do, barring any setback in Manning's recovery or any setback with his foot that we're unaware of that would cause trepidation. It feels like to me he's going to go back to the veteran, the guy that won the game and obviously has more experience. But there would be an advantage to waiting. I just don't think this team needs any more uncertainty or potential distraction going into a playoff game because every question in the locker room, if this went to like next Wednesday or Thursday, would be, practically reporters taking straw polls on who they want their quarterback to be. I just don't think that's a great situation.
Well, let me follow up on that. Yeah, we're ganging up on Kiz, but I want to do that. I like doing that.
Bring it on.
Based on a number of veterans that I talked to, and number would be half a dozen players that I talked to, they seemed very happy that Peyton was back in the lineup. They were doing it very either off the record or very quietly. Do you think that there could be a fissure in the locker room, Troy, based on the decision either way?
I don't. I think the veteran players would rather go to Manning. They see it in a way that's very, very isolated. Peyton Manning, the name, the guy, number 18. Why wouldn't you? Why they would have a hard time reconciling Woody if they lost the playoff game and he was standing on the sideline. Whereas outside looking in, objectively, as Kids done, I mean, Brock Osweiler has been their better quarterback this season. But it's interesting. They've rallied around both guys. Having been around the team from jump this year, there hasn't been even the private grumblings other than early in the season that some of the defensive guys were growing tired of the interceptions and getting compromised in terms of field position. But even that wasn't made personal toward Manning. It was like, geez, I wish they would quit turning the ball over. It's just it's interesting dynamic that they've rallied around both guys. they would support both guys, because Brock, give him credit, he has handled this really well. I mean, if he was a petulant child and said, I can't believe they took the job away from me, and any guy on their team right now that comes out and looks selfish on a 12-4 number one seeded team, it stands to look like a complete jerk. But he got kind of screwed yesterday. He didn't play terribly, and he's handled it well. So I don't think it would cause a division in the locker room.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you when you say he got screwed yesterday. He threw 2 interceptions. He fumbled the ball.
Neither of which were his fault.
Well,
neither of which is fault.
Yeah, well, he fumbled the ball. I guess that's not his fault either. He was the engineer on that locomotive that was a train wreck for. And I heard somebody say, "Well, he's really played well." No, he didn't play well in the Oakland game. He's played well in halves of games. You've even written that, Troy. And I watched. I don't know what you guys did, but I was just kind of sitting there waiting for Peyton to get dressed and talk to him off to the side, and he and Brock were chuckling with each other. It did not look to me like, going back to Terry Bradshaw and Jefferson Joe Gilliam or other situations I've seen in the past, it looked like they actually have, if this is fair, and I'll get the two of you, they've grown closer during this. Because Peyton did say last night, now I know how Brock feels. I didn't give him any reps this week.
I agree, Woody, that this has made them closer, have given them each a better understanding of the other's role. You know, Brock always being in the green room, like, man, I wish I'd get the opportunity. He's realizing it's not easy. It's not easy being the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. And Peyton realizing it's not easy to come in off the bench after getting scout team reps during the week. I do think it's helped them. And because I don't think there was that closeness prior to this season. I mean, I only covered them last year, but I just sensed the professional relationship. This year seems like they've kind of bonded over their unique circumstances, and that has certainly helped this situation, because these usually, as you guys know more than I, when quarterback situations begin to unravel, it typically takes the team with them, and I haven't sensed that. Even off the record, I just have not sensed that they're very clear that they will support either guy. Now, if they lose in the playoffs and go one and done, they'll be grumbling, but I haven't sensed right now that the quarterback issue is in any way dividing the team.
I've got to finish off with this. I know you have stuff to do, but I've been asked by a number of people this morning, DeMarcus Ware, we really didn't quite know the extent of his knee injury. Either of you guys found out any more today about him? Chris Harris Jr. had an arm issue last night. Brandon Marshall didn't play. They lost Stewart again. Can you give us an update on where we are with those 4 key players?
Yeah, I talked to Chris Harris, and he said his MRI came back fine. It's a deep bone bruise. His words were, "I'll be ready to go for the playoffs." DeMarcus Ware has a knee injury. There's still ambiguity there. We're not sure. He did tell teammates after the game, Woody, that he thought he'd be fine for the playoffs with the week off. Darian Stewart, because of the week off, should be available. His hamstring injury isn't as bad as the one that caused him to miss the Steelers game, but if they were to play this week, I don't think he could have played. Brandon Marshall, they just realized, and Brandon told me afterward, he got in that game and was just like, man, I'm not right. I need to just step out. He played 3 plays, I think the first 3 plays of the game, and then he stepped out. And I think that's a smart decision, because he would have, they don't want to risk having him unavailable.
Troy Rink, Denver Post, thanks for joining us, Troy. We'll see you during the course of the week and talk to you more.
Look forward to it. Take care, Woody.
Okay, live guests appear on the sports show, courteous of Papa John's. I think they were shouting that in the locker room last night. Papa John's, Papa John's. The day after every Broncos win. Guess what? Today is your big chance. 50% off regular menu prices. Go online, orders, and this is online orders using the promo code Broncos. 50% off at the new papajohns.com.
For our Players' Choice Pizzas, we made the NFL players' favorite pizzas. Now you can eat like an NFL player.
If I can eat like a football player, I can talk like one. I can work out like one. I can even dress like one.
Look, you can eat the pizza. You just can't steal my shorts.
Up your game with any large specialty pizza, including Players' Choice Pizzas. Only $12 each.
Better ingredients, better pizza,
Better football.
at the new papajohns.com.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price, and you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more, because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
This is a sports show. That's Woody Paige. I'm Mark Kiszla. Woody, which NFL team had the biggest collapse on the final weekend of the NFL season?
The New England Patriots. I know it's easy to say the New York Jets, but I thought the Jets were in trouble from the moment. I mean, Rex Ryan, that was his Super Bowl, that was his career, that was everything laid out in front of him. I just felt like that was a setup from the beginning that no matter what the Jets did, Ryan Fitzpatrick helped with his 3 interceptions, but now I'm going to the Patriots. The Patriots were playing Dean Smith ball. They were playing 4 quarters. I'm surprised that Tom Brady wasn't there dribbling the ball.
They only threw the ball 5 times in the first half.
I can only believe that Belichick and Josh McDaniels sitting down in the week saying, we got so many players out, we can beat this team if we just don't make mistakes, don't turn the ball over. Sort of like what the Broncos probably approached the San Diego Chargers game, and then they ended up making 5 turnovers, and Kubiak made a point that when you're -4, I think it was 35 games that had not been won during the course. I don't even know what his number was, but I don't think the Patriots really had a turnover. They just didn't play. That, to me, was the biggest collapse because it's laying there in front of you that you can be the number 1 seed. We all know everybody's afraid of going to New England and playing. You know the weather's going to be bad. You and I want no part of going to New England. I'd rather the Broncos lose at home in the first game and not go to New England than have to play there. I've seen it over and over and over again. I just think that was the biggest collapse. They looked like a team that didn't want to play the game. We're just going to hope they were going to win at the end.
Julian Edelman will get healthier during the bye week, so they'll be okay at wide receiver. But if you watch the Patriots yesterday, that's a team that doesn't know what it's doing at running back and has maybe bigger problems on the offensive line than the Broncos do. And at the end of that game, looking at the faces of Brady and Belichick, those were 2 guys that were not only ticked off, they were searching really hard for answers. I think the Patriots are even softer and more vulnerable than they were 3 or 4 weeks ago.
When you add that to the fact that they were intent on not getting Tom Brady hurt, guess what? He got hurt. Bill Belichick, we know he's a liar. He said afterward, what are you talking about? Anybody watching the game could see him limping off the field after Sue hit him, and that they didn't even put him back in. The normal New England Patriots would have tried to figure out a way to score 10 points in the last couple of minutes. Belichick worked so hard to get in a situation where he could save as much time as he could that he didn't even put Brady back in the game. This was a team that has looked bad for weeks since it came here. It never really has recovered. When you add all the injuries and everything, that was a collapse. They will not get to the Super Bowl, much less win it this year.
I love this question. Does any team in the wide open AFC playoff race have a chance against the NFC team in the Super Bowl?
Can I say this to you quietly?
Yes.
Nobody else can hear?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm sitting here in Denver. I'm not wearing a sweater with the Broncos logo all over it.
That's not fair.
And I know we're supposed to be Broncos lovers and all that stuff. The Broncos can't beat Carolina. They can't beat Seattle. We've
Arizona?
already seen that. Arizona. The Patriots can't do it. Pittsburgh, I think, would have a chance.
Right.
But they have now more running back problems. No, I don't think there's a team. I think this is an NFC year again. I think the NFC, that Pete Carroll or whoever it is, does not make a boner decision at the end like they did last year. This is an NFC year.
I totally agree. I've felt it for weeks that the NFC has the 3 best teams in football right now. You've mentioned them, and one of those 3 teams will be the Super Bowl champion.
If it's Carolina, if it's Seattle, you're right. Seattle's playing better than anybody. Arizona was playing great. They had the burp against at home against Seattle. Seattle has rediscovered its Legion of Doom, if you will, the Legion of Boom. Russell Wilson has emerged as a better quarterback from all the problems they had this year. Pete Carroll, we know, is a great coach. Carolina is on a run. Cam Newton is the most valuable player in the league. Arizona is still a very good football team. There is not anybody in the AFC that can compete with that. Let's have a news break with Molly Hughes, and we'll continue with you on The Sports Show with Mark Kiszla, and I'm Woody Paige.
Hello, I'm Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom with sad news that hits close to home here. Former Denver Post columnist Penny Parker has died. Her family says Parker was found dead in her Capitol Hill condo on Saturday. The cause of death has not been determined. Penny Parker was best known for her On the Town column in the Rocky Mountain News, covering the social scene and bringing readers news about Denver's movers and shakers. She had 2 stints at the Denver Post before and after her work at the Rocky Mountain News. Starting as a features reporter at the Post in the early 1990s, she returned to the Post as a business columnist after the Rocky Mountain News closed its doors in 2009. Many people got to know Penny Parker as she chronicled her fight against breast cancer in her column about 10 years ago. Social media has exploded upon the news of Parker's passing. Her husband, Greg Henry, posted on Facebook that Parker did not want a funeral and her wish was to be cremated. He writes that he is working on carrying out her wishes. Plans for some sort of memorial service are forthcoming, and an autopsy is being performed to determine the cause of death. Penny Parker is survived by her husband, Greg, and her now grown son, Mackenzie. She was 62 years old.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
I still don't believe we're going to get our hearts broken, but the Chargers are likely to submit an application today, on Monday, to move
to the Los Angeles, greater LA area.
And I'm not so sure it's going to happen, but you and I have had our depressions twice this year. Once when we went to San Diego, and we think maybe unless we pay for it, that'll be our last trip to San Diego. And yesterday, the Chargers and Phillip Rivers may have made their last visit as the San Diego Chargers. People tend to forget they were originally the Los Angeles Chargers, so they would be returning home after, 55, 56 years. What would you miss most about the teams that have spent their time in San Diego?
Everything: the weather, the beach, the stadium, the sea of orange that makes the trek out to San Diego for every Chargers-Broncos game. I am not convinced that the Chargers will be in LA next season. I'm not convinced at all that will happen. But if it does happen, then I've said it before, you've amplified it, you've stated it very well. I'm half serious, too. If the Chargers leave, the Broncos should play one home game in San Diego every year because it would be a party, and it'd be a far better idea than airlifting the whole kit and caboodle over to London for a game.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. I'm going to give you a moment, not involving the Denver Broncos. San Diego Chargers reached the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Remember that? I'm talking to a guy named Mike Shanahan, who is the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. And at the commissioner's party, which was a big event back then, Mike Shanahan and his wife Peggy and I are talking. And everybody knew that Mike was going to replace Wade Phillips and come back to Denver, but it was not official at that point. And I said to on a Friday night before the Sunday game, and he's at the commissioner's party, so he wasn't particularly worried about the San Diego Chargers defense. He's out on a Friday night. Yeah. And I said, so how do you think the game's going to go? He said, Mike, and everybody out there knows Mike, will believe this. Mike Shanahan said, I'm going to make sure that we beat them by more points.
Oh, my goodness.
You never heard this story?
No.
He told me this. He said, we're going to beat them by more points than Montana and the 49ers
Holy
beat
moly!
us.
Not that he was confident or anything.
But he wanted that mark erased from the Denver Broncos in his tenure here as offensive coordinator. So the Broncos lost 55-10. If you remember that game, and maybe we'll have to have somebody look this up, but they got off to, Steve Young's the quarterback. They get off to this incredible start. They're up 21-0. Don't even remember the quarterback. He was a vague kind of guy from San Diego. And they're up like 24-0. And I said, he's going to do it. He's actually going to do it. The game ends up being like 58-24. That's around what
Stan
it was.
Humphries? Was that
Stan Humphries.
Yes!
And so he didn't quite do it.
Yeah.
Because the 49ers defense, he scored more points than Montana did. I think it was maybe 52-53, but the defense didn't hold up his end. But that was Mike Shanahan's goal, and to this day, he probably wouldn't admit it, but I will never forget that. That's my memory of San Diego, that Shanahan wanted them to suffer more than the Broncos did in the 55-10 loss.
Chargers leave San Diego for Los Angeles. If they leave, does that have ramifications on the AFC West? Do you think they would leave the AFC West as well, and we would get Seattle as a division mate?
That's only if the Raiders leave. You have a problem if both of them were to go there. If that deal works out, where they both go, but I think they're still a part of the AFC West, the old AFL. No, I don't think that changes if they go to Los Angeles. What I wondered why you were saying that was, could the Oakland Raiders consider moving to San Diego? Because San Diego seems to be more willing to build a stadium now, although the people there don't really care about a team. I've told you all along, it's hard for us to believe that the Oakland Raiders could go to St. Louis. Now you have a deal where the Seattle Seahawks might have to move in with LA, not into the stadium, but move into the division. So it could have ramifications on the Broncos. This segment brought to you by John Elway Chevrolet on South Broadway. As we've mentioned, it's Colorado's #1 Chevrolet dealership. If you're looking for Chevrolet, and I drove that I had a 62 Super Sport, and it's still my favorite car of all time.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
It's one of our favorite segments, and it's trending now. And we have a visitor who's wearing a great Paisley shirt.
Exactly.
Hello, did your wife get
How
you
did
that?
you go with the Paisley today, and Woody did not?
You know, he sets the tone here, so I thought I wouldn't be alone, but apparently I am today.
So who are you, and why are you here?
I'm Dan Boniface with DenverPost.com, and this is What's Trending Now.
What is trending?
Well, one of the Broncos stories that's trending today that you guys haven't touched on yet so far in the show is, by the season wrapping up and them getting the 1 seed, they actually have their opponents for next season.
Oh, you're right.
And I have the list here. Which of these home opponents are you most excited about? We've got obviously the Chargers, Chiefs, and Raiders. And then Colts, Texans.
Well, we're not so sure about that. If there are some change, if LA and San Diego go, they would have to rework the entire division. So I just throw that in.
But the non-division home opponents get these names.
Yeah, Colts, Texans, Falcons, Panthers, and Patriots.
Panthers, Patriots, Colts with Andrew Luck, Texans with J.J. Watt. My reaction? That ain't fair.
Well,
somebody's going to get killed.
How do they end up playing the Patriots every year? I mean, they're not in the
but
same
for a
division,
change, now the pendulum has swung, and now the Patriots have to come here instead of the Broncos going there.
That is a great story, but all of you have buried the lead over there on the other side of the table. All I care about is where we're going. And he does too, because
Okay,
he's got relatives in every city in the NFL.
So we have
We do have the road opponents here. So we've got the
division opponents.
Yep,
but-
obviously the divisional opponents. Then we've got Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans,
Nashville,
Tennessee,
Tampa Bay Bucks,
Ooh,
New
I like a
Orleans,
family score.
New Orleans.
New Orleans Saints.
Man, I'm not going to die
Cincinnati
before
Bengals.
next year.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Cincinnati. I can take that.
Yeah,
Make that.
But
a,
New Orleans,
make that a
Tampa,
September
that's
game.
not too bad. That's
Jacksonville. That's a couple of Florida games. A New Orleans game. Wow, that's a good schedule.
Yeah, NFC South.
What else you got?
All right, next up here, the Nuggets are again in a tailspin here. Their record is now 12-23, and I don't know if you saw the comments from Coach Michael Malone last night. He said, I can't coach effort. We didn't defend, and he also said we're just a bad team right now. I mean, has he lost this team already? Are they going to respond to this?
Let me throw a stat at you, Woody. As Dan just said, after 35 games under Michael Malone, the Nuggets are 12-23. After 35 games last season under Brian Shaw, they were 15-20. They were a better team through 35 games last year.
Well, what's happened? I think you used the word tailspin. They've won 1 out of their last 10. They've lost 6 in a row. At this
6 or
point.
7 in a row, yep.
Yeah, and they've had serious injury problems as they did last year.
Well,
they seem to have more injury problems. I think there's something about playing at altitude on all levels. I think. I got no proof on that. I have no problem with it. I think they should play 3 or 4 games outdoors. I think if I might follow the Celtics who are thinking about playing at Fenway Park. But and to be totally serious, though, I'm looking at it from the other direction. That I'm looking at from the bottom up every day when I look.
So every loss is a good thing as far as you're concerned.
See, I've wanted them to tank from the very beginning of the season. I want them to have a chance at a guy who plays for LSU, and the better chances they have, the worse they get. And they are like 4 or 5 from the bottom, and I'm fine with that because the Knicks are going to play well enough, almost, even though the Eastern Conference has improved enough that you have to have at least a winning record to be maybe in the playoffs this year, but they're not going to they're not going to be flipping that thing with the Knicks. The Knicks go.
Okay, if you're hopeful, they're not going to have a worse record than the 76ers, and they're not going to have a worse record than the Lakers. But they have a real possibility now of having the third worst record in the league.
3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that. I think if you look at it, they've won fewer games than any NBA team in the last 10, including the 76ers. They've won fewer games.
So it's good for you.
Yeah, well, that's what I want. People aren't going anyway. Nobody cares about this team. Their best player's been hurt most of the year. Gallinari's not playing that well. I'm okay with it. The other team's not playing any good either. I'm talking about the Avalanche. They're not a playoff team either. So.
Do we have time for one more?
Sure, yeah. Always for you.
All right. Last thing we have here is the Avs. Last night, or I guess it was 2 nights ago, they were shut out 4-0 against Calgary. And Patrick Waugh was saying after the game, we were too focused on trying to get Kiszla his 600th goal. Did you happen to catch this and see that Alex Tanguay had a wide open net, and instead he decides to pass it off to Kiszla? Have you ever seen anything like this where
I saw it
personal
in the
stats come before it?
I saw it in the Kansas City game with
Peyton Manning setting the yardage record,
yeah,
and that's a mistake. And if you do that, if you start thinking about the individual rather than the team, it's going to turn out badly for the team.
Thank you, Dan. Tell everybody again how they can reach you.
You can find us on denverpost.com/sports.
We'll have a news break with Molly Hughes. Continue on the Sports Show.
Hello, I'm Molly Hughes in the Denver Post newsroom. The new year kicks off with more controversy surrounding the program that enables immigrants to get driver's licenses in Colorado. The Colorado Division of Motor Vehicles and state prosecutors are investigating amid reports that some immigrants have been swindled out of hundreds of dollars by con artists, promising to get them around the months-long wait to get an appointment with the DMV. At issue, there are only 3 DMV offices that accommodate the special program, and with an estimated 150,000 immigrants eligible for the Colorado driver's licenses, the funding may run out before everyone is eligible to get an appointment. The program is meant to pay for itself by charging each applicant a $55 fee above what everyone else pays. But Republican lawmakers rejected an initiative to use that money to beef up services and speed up the wait times for immigrants who qualify. Advocates of the program say it makes Colorado roads safer by increasing the number of licensed and insured drivers. Democrats plan to run numerous bills at the upcoming legislative session to help resolve the roadblocks, but many Republicans who were against the program to begin with are vowing to block any upcoming bills now that they are in control of the legislature.
It's the sports show. One of our other favorite segments is Madison's Mailbag. Madison Faulkner is here today and gone tomorrow. No, I'm kidding. She's here every day.
Every day.
What do you got for us?
So we asked our awesome Twitter followers to create memes with the iconic Phillip Rivers face that he had last night, and we used the hashtag #SadRivers, and this is what we got.
That's
so the first
sad.
one. That is a very sad Rivers face. So the meme was created, and it says, "I liked it better when Cutler was the quarterback. I could win those games."
Except when Ackley was the referee. The next one.
And then our second one is, "You mean they're not retiring my Bolo in San Diego?" And then, so if you guys keep creating these awesome memes, we will play them throughout the week using hashtag #SadRivers. And our tweet of the day is from Jamie and Connie. And he wants to know, is there a matchup for the Broncos you'd like to see and one that scares you?
Houston.
Houston, you want to see Houston?
Houston here.
Yeah. So it's got to be Houston, the Chiefs, or the Steelers.
No, I'm just saying. I'd like to see Houston here. I mean,
I'd like to see the Chiefs here. I'll tell you why. Texans aren't very good, but I do not want to see J.J. Watt against this offensive line.
Yeah,
that scares
I agree
me.
with you. The Chiefs, the Bengals. I'm not Houston. You know, I think the Broncos are better off if they don't have to play the Patriots and figure out how that Tom Brady does whatever he does. I think they're better off not playing Roethlisberger. That's of all the games. All the rest of them, I think the Broncos can win here.
Awesome. Well, that is it for me today, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll be back after John Elway Chevrolet tells you why you should own a Chevrolet.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
It's 4 on the floor. Question number 1. Who's your choice right now for the national champion in college football?
I'd like to see Clemson do it, and why I have no attachment to the Tigers, but I like their coach. I like that it'd be somebody else, but Alabama's defense is too good for Clemson.
It was real easy to say from a lot of the experts that Oklahoma was going to beat Clemson. There was no way that was happening, and Clemson has been they're number 1. They're undefeated. They're underrated. They get no respect. Now I sound like a player. They're beating Bama. Clemson's the best team.
You really believe that?
Yes, I do. I absolutely, positively do believe it.
Well, does what we've seen in the bowl games change your mind that there should be 8 instead of 4 because of what we've seen from Stanford and a couple of other teams? Doesn't Stanford deserve to be somewhere in there?
Stanford was better than Oklahoma, and it's gonna be 8 teams. The ESPN and my friend Bill Hancock at the playoff committee are dragging their feet on that, but money will make that happen.
And I want it to happen. I don't care. The people who were dragged kicking and screaming into the playoff have seen that it's still good. They played it on the wrong day, though. I mean, they didn't want to play it on the same day as Rose Bowl, but so what? You could have played it before and after the Rose Bowl if that's such a part of the Rose Bowl. Shouldn't be in control of the world, but secondly, it should be 8. There would be the 9th team. The hell with you. You have no opportunity. But the 8 teams, I would have liked 8 teams, and I think you have all 5 champions from the 5 power conferences. You have Notre Dame can get in there. Give me 8 teams. It's going to happen. And the fewer bowls we have, man, that was like wading through muddy, dirty, sluggish, oil-covered water to watch any bowl game.
Explain this to me. Stanford Band at it again. Was that a halftime show, a couch prank, or worthy of punishment?
I didn't quite see it. I saw pictures of it, but they were making fun of Iowan farmers. Is that it? I mean, if they went over the edge on that, I thought at least that one's kind of harmless if they're talking about farmers.
Stanford Band was Twitter before Twitter. Don't get upset at the Stanford Band. Move on. Favorite bowl name? What's your favorite bowl name?
Orange.
They don't call it the Weed Whacker Bowl anymore. That was my all-time favorite. That's all I know.
I just want to. The Rose Bowl was even presented by somebody else. Did you see that? It's not even the Rose Bowl.
I understand. That's the way of the world now.
Yeah,
Speaking of sponsors,
Orange Bowl.
Who's the four on the floor brought to you by?
Citywide Bank's a family-owned, Colorado-focused business bank with 12 locations across Denver and Boulder. Our friends at Citywide Bank offer 25 services, and I mean that truly. We've become friends with those people, and we do our banking there. They offer you 25 services that can help your business, big or small, and they're passionate support of over 150 Colorado charities. Bank where we do, bank where your friends and neighbors do. Citywide Banks.
I am Citywide Banks.
I am Citywide Banks.
At Citywide Banks,
we put you first by exceeding your service expectations every day.
Every day.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.
We finished with pick 6, and today it's sort of a combination. The top 6 at the end of the regular season, but more importantly, 6 from 6 to 1 of the teams you think have the best chance to win the Super Bowl. These are not Vegas odds.
I saw the Vegas odds, and I think right now they have Denver at 5 to 1 and New England at 5 to 1. But I'll tell you what, in order. Number 6, Denver. I think they have a puncher's chance, but not much of a chance because I think they're not as good as 2 teams in the AFC. Number 5 is Pittsburgh. Have running back problems, but they have an explosive offense. Number 4 is New England. They're a mess, but I still think they have the Broncos' number when it comes to the playoffs. Number 3, 2, and 1 are all in the NFC. Number 3, Carolina. Number 2, Arizona. And number 1, the next Super Bowl champion of the world, the Seattle Seahawks.
I got to question one thing. I'll take up my own time here. You say New England has the Broncos' number in the playoffs. It seems to me the last time these 2 teams met, the Broncos won in the playoffs.
Okay.
AFC Championship 2 years ago, here in Denver.
Okay.
That was a better team then than it is now. Think about that. Before you go off on that tangent in all your columns you write. He is Colorado's premier columnist. My 6, starting with number 6, Arizona. I've liked Arizona. I've been on them all year long. Mm-hmm. They've dropped a little bit in my mind, but I think they're still there. I think Pittsburgh's a better team than Arizona. I think Pittsburgh is number 5. 4, I'm rating the Broncos higher than you because the Broncos
have home
field advantage, and that hasn't been an advantage to it the last 3 years. But I mentioned the teams that I think that there are only one or two teams that I think they'd have real problems with here in Denver. Number 3, Kansas City, and that's one of the teams I think they will have a problem with. Well, you don't seem to think they would have a problem, so that would make Denver ahead of Kansas City. Number 2, Seattle, and number 1, Carolina. Seattle has got to prove it to me
that they can go win in Carolina.
That they can go win in Carolina. That's going to wrap up the show today. Thank you. It was a big day, big weekend in Denver. We will continue to talk about Broncos and playoffs and all sports all the time on the Sports Show. Mark Kiszla, I'm Woody Paige. Today's show brought to you by John Elway Chevrolet.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on johnelwaychevrolet.com.